Loads of that heroin that came out of Afghanistan ended up in America. That's
what about the goats? There's plenty of goats there.
Yeah, they fuck those goats. Okay.
and then you eat it.
We need to see a
visual
chart for those that watch on the platforms where you can obviously see it.
It's crazy. All Barclays Bank have done to me is try it and exploit me. Yeah, I still fucking buy their product by having my money there. Like, it's so dumb. I don't know what. The problem is there's no choice. Like, why
I was going to say, what would another bank do? Come and massage your balls?
I know.
It's like, oh, guys, we're not going to exploit you. Ooh.
Get off my balls.
Exploit me.
Oh God, no, not a second.
Did I see your pronouns on LinkedIn, guys?
Yeah, Bitcoin/BTC.
And here we are, once again, episode 18, the world's most bullish podcast. Mr. All-In, Dr. Evil 10%. I'm going to call you Dr. Evil 10%. Can't just be Dr. 10%. That's not right. And, of course, Sir Neverlook. In the background.
Why can't I just be Dr. 10%?
Nah, it just doesn't work for me.
Yeah, that was the thing, wasn't it? I put the Dr. Evil meme in there. You literally have everything. Like, you're bold, you've got the cat, you got the laugh.
It works.
You want $1 billion?
Bitcoin, $1 billion.
I don't know if $1 billion will go that far very soon.
It might buy you a Tesla.
Might give me a Mars bar in a few years' time at this rate.
$1 billion Dogecoin.
Well, I said I actually wanted something for it, so I think I prefer like a Mars bar rather than Dogecoin.
Hey, the money printer's going recently, isn't it? We're going to talk about that for sure.
I've been watching those documentaries that you sent through, the hard money and the petrodollars, which is kind of fits into that. But I think you had it as topics last week.
It's okay,
really good.
Cover it.
Really good watches. The only one which I haven't finished off was the Anatomy of a State, which I'm about halfway through.
Yeah, no, they're amazing, and they've just been put together by some Bitcoiners. I didn't actually realize that. I thought they were professionally done, but there's
Oh, of course, it's got Saifedean Ammous. I recognise his voice. I was like,
yeah. So it's got
up in that.
I mean, it's Nick Carter and Saifedean, and there's a couple of others that do the voiceovers. Then there's another Bitcoiner that's done the animation, and there's another set of Bitcoiners that wrote the script. And so it's just great. This is how we get there, right? This is just some independent Bitcoiners putting together these half an hour films. They're amazingly good and just so professionally put together. And it's the stuff that I just wish I knew. Like when I watched the petrodollar one, it's why we had an entire episode pretty much on it last week. It just blew my mind. I kind of, again, it's a little bit like with Bitcoin where there's lots of pieces and I knew it didn't make sense. And I knew like all the wars didn't really make sense. And we're kind of going in for oil and all those types of reasons. But I didn't know the background. I didn't know about the petrodollar to this degree. And just having someone condense it down into 30 minutes, it all just clicks. And you're like, of course, there it is.
I had wondered why Saudi get away with whatever the fuck they want, and there it is. And then there's always been the talk about why the fuck did you invade Afghan? It's like, oh, we're chasing after the Taliban. It's like 1,000 people. Why the fuck are you going in there? Like where millions of people are. And then was it Iraq? Like the first Gulf War, I think there's some kind of justification.
Yeah.
Whereas the second, it's like, they got WMDs, and it's just like, no, they haven't. There's never any proof. And there's that famous scientist, or what was he, Dr. David Kelly, who was found with certain wounds which couldn't be inflicted by a suicide, but they was like, it's suicide. And that was to expose Tony Blair, who still hasn't been brought to justice around this, even though I think even one of his successors, Keir Starmer, and what's his name, Jeremy Corbyn, wanted him to stand trial for it because it was so bad.
Yeah.
So really good watches. I think, don't want to take us on too much of a tangent, but definitely recommend that in case anyone who's trying to shill whatever shitty coin on our comments actually watches us.
Also, though, I think to your point, though, guys are talking about they are easy watches, but sometimes you have to rewire and retrain your brain to remember or to actually think, yeah, this is the truth, because it's so easily absorbable. And you think, wow, okay. And then you have to take a step back to think, right, now I get it. But again, no one is shouting about this, but it's happening right in front of our eyes.
It's like with the money, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
They've lied about money and don't tell us the truth. And it's not until you read something like the Bitcoin Standard that teaches about the history of money and what makes good money, then you suddenly realize, oh, let's compare good money to what we're doing now. And you just go, this clearly isn't good money. What the hell are they doing? And you go,
yeah,
oh, it's because they're filtering it off for themselves. Okay. Now it makes sense. Now it's not like an accident.
But it's becoming more and more blatant at the moment. They're even admitting to the shit which they're doing. But they're like, you know what? You can't do fuck. Literally it's got to that point where they literally don't care.
Yeah, you're right.
There'd be arrogance even through the UK government of like, we'll just print more money, we'll do quantitative easing, it'll get us through. And it's just like, you're just stealing money off everyone to bring in stupid fucking policies.
Yeah. Which is right. When we go back to it, like you like the whole Great Reset and all that type of stuff, I think they are getting to the point where they are getting a little bit worried about an uprising, which is why I think they kind of ran this test the last 2 years, which is, can we just tell everyone to stay home? And can we force vaccines on everyone? Let's see what happens. And I bet they were amazed with how easily it happened. And they went, there you go. That's what we do. If there's an uprising about the money, we press the pandemic button and everyone scurries off home. And it's just, it's shameful because the fact that they can, when you own the media, you own the narrative. So whatever they say goes, that is the story. And if they're not talking about inflation, they're not talking about illegal wars. Instead, they're talking about a pandemic and how much you all need to take the vaccine and, grandma's dying. Then that's all people listen to.
Well, do you think it's a bit of a coincidence that we're in the midst of the dollar dying and the pandemic comes out the bag?
Yeah,
exactly.
Because this could be because I do look at this every day and I'm like, I don't get this. I still don't get it.
Oh, I still don't get it. I don't see the end game, but it's happening right in front of our eyes, right?
And now. I'm like,
you're right.
The numbers do not justify the action, no matter what. Even if you are like, oh, it's bloody really bad, because the numbers make no sense. You wouldn't have to justify it with and for. So I can't work out what the hell's going on. Like, it just makes no sense. It's like New Zealand locking down for one case of COVID. Australia locking down for, 300 deaths. And it's just like, seriously?
Yeah.
It's insane. Yeah. But without going down the COVID rabbit hole, let's flip it to the first story, which is
the Taliban.
The heavy one. When I put this story on, it was mainly Bitcoin related, which is, the Taliban have raided the embassy. And at the time, they hadn't taken it over when the story got put out. But essentially what it was showing is it looked like they were going to overthrow it. And once you obviously own the government, you then own the banks. So they can just steal the money from the back. They can close the bank and steal everyone's money. So people were running into the street. They were emptying the ATMs and they were trying to get into the main banks and withdraw their savings. And the banks just closed their doors. The ATMs were emptied in minutes and people were just terrified, their life savings were going to go. And it was very interesting that the link that I chose to send in to you guys was from the New York Times. So, and it's quite a long tweet that was describing the situation. Then it had a video on it of people running in the street. And within about an hour or so of me taking a kind of copy of this and just adding it to our notes to discuss it, the New York Times had deleted it. And I thought even that just was interesting because the fact that the New York Times aren't the type of website like that. When they put out a tweet out, that would go through the same editorial process as writing an article in the New York Times. That's gone through layers of people to make sure it's legit. Is this a real video? Is it really of Afghanistan right now? It's not 4 years ago and all that type of stuff. And is this really what's happening? And I checked their Twitter feed and I was checking it the next couple of days going, did they repost it? Was there a spelling mistake in there or something? And it wasn't. It was deleted, completely removed. And again,
was it because they were wrong and they're actually just fear mongering? And actually, what was happening with Taliban were going to implement a clear equal opportunities progressive country. So that's what I reckon's happening, because that's what America is saying.
Yeah, I know it is interesting, but I think personally, I think it was the fact that they just don't want to attract attention to the fact that the banks are dodgy. So let's just downplay that bit. Like when disaster happens, they don't want to encourage a run on the banks. So that would be my theory, because they never reposted it.
For somebody that doesn't really know why, would you just go into that and unpack that a little bit more?
Well, as in, how do you mean?
In terms of why they wouldn't want the run on the banks. I know we've covered it before in other episodes, but if this is your first time here listening, just to share a little bit of an overview.
Whilst you're shilling doink doink.
Well, essentially the banks don't have enough money for the amount of savings. So say we're talking about America right now. The banks don't have dollar to dollar what the people think they have, because behind the scenes they lend it out, they loan it. They loan this, like say I deposit $10,000 into one bank account. They will invest $10,000 into the stock market. They'll then use my same $10,000 to loan it out to another 4 people. So essentially what that's called, it's called fractional reserve, that they don't have dollar for dollar what it says on their balance sheet. They physically don't have it. So if everyone just rocks up to the bank all at the same time and says, I want my money back, they can't. There aren't enough dollars in the system. Exactly. So essentially you have, like, banking's collapse, the second confidence in the bank crumbles. So the only option for the banks is they have to close the doors. Because
this was the same in Cyprus 2013.
Yeah. And essentially the reason why they shut the doors is so the elite can get their money out the side. They want the rich guys will then take their dollars out of that bank, convert it into other assets, whether it's property, gold, whatever. And then by the time the doors are open, essentially the plebs never get in. And what they end up doing is going, right, they get the liquidators in and go, right, there's no money here. You all want it. So instead, you'll get a proportion of your money back. So maybe I think in Cyprus, it was like 5 or 10 cents on the dollar. So if you got $10,000 in there, you would get $500 back. And everyone just has to accept it and go, yeah, the bank's crumbled. Oops. And it's essentially, it's just one big Ponzi scheme, the banking thing.
Was Cyprus where they took the once in a lifetime fee after the banking crash, or was that a different one?
No, that was the one, the haircut, basically. So on everybody's bank account, if you had a certain amount in your bank account, then they were taking it regardless.
Yeah, and so you had ownership in the bank, even though you don't have ownership in the bank.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think the Cyprus one has happened a few times. I think everyone lost.
Argentina did it as well, and they did it on what sounded like a big amount, but because the amount of inflation would have been a lot of people who were harmed by that policy.
Yeah, it's happened all the time. Yeah, they can do it arbitrarily and just one day they can just go, yeah, everyone's taking a haircut. We're taking 10-20% of your money.
So this is, I think, a bit of a lesson for everyone, how much money you keep in the banks. I know I've been quite guilty in building up my savings because I thought I was doing the right thing. So it's spreading it into different investments across different accounts as well. So it's not all just stored in one place.
Absolutely. Yeah. I said it in the last podcast, the savers and losers.
I think I was speaking to Gaz because I think on the last one you talked about not understanding money as well. And I think this is the whole point about not understanding money. So fractional reserves, not backed by anything. It's not backed by gold. So it's, how can you have your cash in something which is getting deflated 2% every year? Whereas if you put it into a stock, which is a fairly safe one, so Apple, Facebook, Amazon, that kind of thing, maybe an oil one, maybe something like that, then you at least stay roughly in line with inflation. Yeah. And that's the aim. And I think that's a bit of a lesson. I know I've taken this on a bit of a tangent, but I thought it's quite important to visit.
No, absolutely. And I think I saw a lot of Apple phones in Afghanistan in terms of the people recording what has gone on, because not only did that happen, then we saw the events of them taking over the US embassy. Some of the Afghans that were in there were also trying to bench as well. And yeah, that was a joke. And ultimately, these guys are now going to rule over, but it's really strange. Like, it couldn't have been more of a fuck up. Let's be honest. Like, you get out before you tell everybody. You don't say, oh, by the way, we're going now. It's like playing the game of hide and seek and saying, I'm going to hide in the bathroom, count down to 10. And lo and behold, I'm there. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was very, very embarrassing, wasn't it? And yeah. I think just to add on to the, this is why Bitcoin is the only asset in the world that you can truly take custody of.
Yep.
And you can flee from a country. So, you know, in those horrible scenes of like Afghans grabbing old planes and trying to bundle on and like falling out the sky and stuff, it's just horrendous to see this stuff. And this is what we mean when people flee countries. You do not have time to plan. This just happens. Everything is fine. Like if we rewind a week, yeah, it was obviously hasn't been good for 20 years, but the Taliban were nowhere near taking over. America were there, and it's for all we knew, they had complete control. They'd put in a new government pretty much overnight. There's a great quote actually, weirdly, on someone was sharing on Twitter that Biden had said a couple of months ago that, yeah, when we come out, look, the Taliban might take over or whatever, but it's not going to happen from a Friday to a Monday. It's going to take years. And ironically, exactly that happened. They went in on the Friday, and by the Monday, they're doing press conferences. So they literally did take over in a weekend.
And weren't they taking pictures of themselves in the government offices? Like they're going to post it on Instagram.
Yeah, and that's what they did. And again, that was another meme that was coming out because Donald Trump, a previous president of the United States, has been banned off all platforms. The co-founder of the Taliban still has a Twitter and an Instagram account and was tweeting and Instagramming pictures of himself overthrowing the American government and lauding it up. It's like, hold on, Trump technically got cancelled for like inciting violence. This is the head of the fucking Taliban that's responsible for 9/11. How has he got a Twitter account? My point was
changed.
My point was going to be about custody. So this is what you need. This is, you know, the only true asset you really have is Bitcoin. If you do invest in the stock market, you invest in property, you invest in just putting your money in the bank, there's a custodian between you and that. Like with your property, for example, you don't really ever own it. It's on government land. The government own this land. If they choose to come in and take it and you get an authoritarian government comes in, they just change the rules and they can just take your property. They can also take your stocks and shares. They can also take the money in your bank account. They cannot take the Bitcoin off your ledger. They have to physically come and grab it. So you can hide that. You can, and it's, if anything, it amazes me that the Afghans, and it probably wouldn't surprise me if it wasn't the Americans that were probably maybe pushing the banking system in Afghanistan. Because if I was an Afghanistan guy and earning money there, I would not have trusted the bank. I'd have just been storing cash and putting it under my pillow. It's probably the best thing you could have done. Try to convert it into other types of assets. But it's really heartbreaking to see that over the last 20 years, as they've been rebuilding that country during the war, people have obviously trusted the banks. They've gone and put their money in, and they've been wiped out again. And if they don't,
it's not been so bad. Like they have been inflating the cash supply as normal, but you think like if you look at it, it's been on a steady decline, standard like the dollar. So it hasn't been massive. Like the currency actually isn't that bad.
But yeah, the problem is they've lost it all. It's 100% loss.
Well, I would have expected the currency to go through the floor, but it hasn't. So it's some weird stuff in play. Like, I just don't think this is the end of it. Like, you've seen me stuff in the news about they're shouting death to America, but they seem really nice.
I know the whitewashing that America are trying to play to like downplay this. It's like that article you shared, Darnell. It was such a disgraceful article on Apple News about describing the Taliban. And the first thing I did when I got that article, I searched it for the word terrorist. It was in there once. I went, let's see how they've used it. And the only time they used that word was to describe a terrorist attack on 9/11. But every descriptive word for the Taliban, like in the opening paragraph, they actually, for the first time ever, I learned what the translation of Taliban is.
Correct, yeah.
And it's student. Why did I never know that? Why is it taking 20 years for me to know what the translation of the word Taliban is? Is student.
Let's level with me. What was your previous thought to that word Taliban? What did it mean? What connotations did it bring up to you?
Evil terrorists, beheaders, 9/11.
Exactly.
Now I've got, and the two words that I took away from the article, if I tried to read it and just went, right, I don't know who the Taliban are, I'm going to read this article.
Yeah.
I came away from it going, okay, they're Muslim, they're students, and they're negotiators. Yep. They're not too nice on women. They're not too nice on women. Their women's rights seem a bit off, but then all Muslim countries are. So you could relay that to Saudi Arabia, to Dubai. They treat women horribly in those countries. So, but we just kind of go, that's a religious thing. They are where they are with that, and hopefully they come through it. But I would have come out of it going, the Taliban aren't that bad. It's a bit like Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. It's interesting, actually, because from last week's podcast, I revisited once again The Price of Tomorrow. And in it, he talks about, well, it was just over 100 years ago that within the Western society, we didn't allow women to vote. So we can't say, oh my gosh, they're really oppressive and their views and thoughts are terrible, because we weren't too far ahead of them, because back in the day, we were doing exactly the same as well. Yes, they're not up to speed with where we are, but they've not necessarily had that same engagement with the West. So what do you expect? They've been living in mountains. You know, the way that they were riding on that cross trainer was like they found gold and fire as well. You know, these guys were like kids in a sweet shop.
I know. What's hilarious, they're finding drones that are worth like $4 or $5 million each. They've got freaking helicopters that are worth like $2 billion each. Yep. No instructions. So if they couldn't use a bench press, like imagine them trying to fly a freaking F-15, freaking like, you know, helicopter. It's going to be hilarious. They're going to crash.
There's no YouTube videos on that.
But Pomp was saying in his podcast, you know, what they're going to do, they're going to like have a crash test dummy. I was just like, no, they own the banking system. There was probably all sorts there. They're getting some specialists to teach them.
Yeah, well, yeah, they do own oil, because I looked into this as well, but apparently it's very difficult to get out. But their major resource for the land in terms of Afghanistan is an export of opium and heroin.
Yeah,
and so 60% all comes from there.
Yeah, and it's just purely a coincidence that when America went in there, you know, the main export is heroin, and what has America suffered a pandemic essentially of over the last 20, 30 years.
Opioid
pandemic. And Afghanistan have been shipping this stuff out by the billion. And you've gone, how did they get that out during a war?
Yeah.
Was someone letting them?
Come on, just tie the dots together, man.
Did America literally want to get a load of their population of people addicted to heroin? Like, that is one hell of a scandal, that one, isn't it? Imagine.
I haven't got any
don't say that.
I haven't got any tinfoil, so maybe I can use this.
But literally, all you got to do, you just put out the information, don't you? And this is literally like there's two facts, isn't there?
Draw your own conclusions.
No one's saying it's true. It's just there's two facts there. Their main export is heroin. And loads of that heroin that came out of Afghanistan ended up in America. That's a fact.
What about the goats? There's plenty of goats there.
Yeah, they fuck those goats.
And then you eat it.
We need to see a chart,
a
visual chart for those that watch on the platforms where you can obviously see us. Appreciate if you just listen on audio. But the chart between opioids in America and obviously the time of when the invasion of Afghanistan happened. And I'm sure they'll be in line with one another.
It's a very good point. Never thought about that link. You know, it's one to definitely look into. But I do wonder whether in 200 years, God knows what's happened, whether there'll be a book similar to The Sovereign Individual, where it talks about this reign, this last 50 years, or even 100 years, because let's not forget the First World War. I can never work out as a kid why there's a world war, and I still can't work out to this day why there's a world war. You know, the Second World War was about Hitler, Germany trying to take over, but the first one, why? And then going to places like Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan have never made sense, and it's all these little items. So going back to the time of the church, all the silly laws, all the silly fines, And this is, you think 200 years time, is this going to be the same outlook? Look what they were doing.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
And the petrodollar.
The problem is the unfortunate thing is, at least back in the day when we used to have wars, there was real costs to war. So if you look at World War One, World War Two, and then all the wars that happened before that, the whole of Europe, gone.
World War One was more like it was done to get off bloody gold standard.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah.
And the second one did cost, but we're on, funny money by that time.
But having said that, though, we were on funny money, but they hadn't really got to the rate of printing that they have now. They just started. So by and large, the whole of Europe after both world wars were in a recession. It took decades to, benefits don't exist. They just have to cut them. Healthcare, education, everything took a huge step back. It took decades to recover. If you look at the most recent wars in the last 20, 30 years, pretty much America really started kicking off their wars in 1971. Guess what? They're off the gold standard fully, and they go full into overdrive.
It's just a coincidence.
So, the thing to look at is, so they've had Vietnam, they lost that one pretty much. They went into Iraq, pretty much lost that one by and large. If you look at it, they went into Afghanistan, 20 years in there, they lost that one. So that's 3 massive wars. They lost them all. Didn't really gain anything of that. At least if you look at their main objectives, they didn't achieve their main objectives. If you look around the side and went, they went in there for resources, then they kind of did. But what are the consequences for America? Have they ever been in a recession over the last 30 years since they've started doing all this? No, they're not paying for it. They're just printing out of thin air. And if anything, by going to war, it creates businesses, jobs, and just economic activity for their country.
It bankrupts the poorer countries, Africa, South America, Asia. That was in one of the things which she sent across in those videos, the fact that it is causing damage to the poorer countries, which are using it as it's a dollar standard, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that's the outcome of it, that all these countries have got a lot poorer and depend upon the dollar.
Yeah. Well, there was an interview not so long ago with a guy, I'm gonna find his name, and it was all about exactly this. Why is America always at war? And they have been at war. So his name is David Vine, and America, since their inception, have been at war for every year apart from 11. So for over 270 years, they've had war or conflict of some sort with another country.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that's human beings. Human beings are dickheads. We're very possessive. We're fundamentally selfish beings. We want what we can get for our families and stuff. And you put us in groups and we'll start fighting.
Yep.
But the thing is, at least the wars back in the day, real costs were taken. And that's the thing, that at the end of World War II, with the destruction that happened, we signed the Paris Agreement and went, enough of this now. We are killing our own people. We are bankrupting our own countries that take decades to recover from. Let's all just shake hands, sign a document, and say we're not going to do this anymore. And by and large, we've complied to that with the people that signed the agreement. But the Middle East weren't in it. So they're just kind of everyone's kicking bag because they got a load of natural resources. And so, we have the Paris Agreement. We don't go to war with each other anymore. We committed to going, no matter how much we fall out, we will sort it out through negotiation and trade deals. We will not drop bombs on each other anymore. That is unacceptable. And we've gone past that as a society. So we've kind of agreed that within Europe, a bit of Asia and America. We've all kind of shook hands on that and go, we'll never drop a bomb on each other again. But the Middle East weren't in on it. And we just seem to go, they don't really count. And we just keep attacking them.
Yeah.
It's an interesting point, because it was watching, I think it's Hard Money, is talking about what was it, 1971, when America said, no, you're not having your gold back.
Yeah.
And my immediate thought was, why didn't the UK, France, everyone else just go, well, we're going to fucking bomb you? And it maybe was this silliness of, admittedly, they probably should have, looking back at retrospectively, because all America have done is fuck everyone over.
Also, there was lots of trust there as well. You know, don't forget before the war, they shipped their gold over to America into Fort Knox, you know, through sheer just like, yeah, here you go. Like, there you go. It's okay. You take it.
But then everyone realized that they were spending so much that they were spending their gold.
Yeah. I must admit, I do think that's another reason why America like going to war and just picking an easy target. If anything, what they're doing, it's like the bully in the playground, and everyone's scared of them because he's the biggest guy in the playground, and he's won his past fights. But if you don't see that bully fighting for a couple of months, the other kids might be getting a bit like, oh, maybe he's lost his edge, you know, maybe he's not as nasty. So I think what he likes to do is once a week, just pick on a little kid, smashes him in the face, takes his dinner money, just as a lesson to the rest of you.
We can flex.
I'm still hard. I've still got skills. And I do think, and it's another excuse for him to practice as well, just practice my ability to keep my eye in. And I think, because the thing is, like, you can build the best army in the world, you can train them, but unless they've been at war, they're not really fine-tuned to actual fighting. So, yeah, so because America go to war and they're almost constantly at war, not only are they funding their military, they are fine-tuning them. They're prepping them for war. They're innovating with the latest bombs and technology and drones and God knows what else. And if anything, I think it's just constant warnings to go, just in case Britain or Europe or China or Russia, look what we can do. Like, go and switch on your TV and look what happens to Afghanistan right now. Yeah, that could be you, motherfucker. Don't come for your gold. Don't get above your station. We're still the number one.
I'm going to expand on this a little bit more with hard numbers as well, because it's a really good point. And of course, it still goes back to America and their spending and their love of the money printer. So America's military spending in 2020 was $778 billion. The next country down is China at 252 billion.
Sorry, what's the first one? 700?
$778. Then China at 252, India at 72.9, Russia at 61.7, and then the United Kingdom at 59.2. Quick maths obviously says that those four countries still, with their quotas, don't add up to how much America spend. I think if you can continue down, and I'm looking down with Saudi Arabia at 57, Germany at 52, France at 52, and Japan at just over 49, is still not getting to the United States at number one. So they're not only practicing, they're also increasing their spend so that if anybody does try to obviously test the might of their army, they're ready.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with Taiwan, because that's meant to be the next situation. Because if that kicks off, what they're going to do, and it'll show this might be the swing where China just starts battering small countries nearby, just as America have to show their might.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because we are on that point, and we all know this, but we are on that kind of tipping point where America is going to fade off, and it's just what it goes to. China,
well, yeah,
exactly.
It's got to be.
Well, this could be ultimately what America have been training for, right? They knew someone was going to rise up and be the number two, and fundamentally, China have sneaked up and are actually probably technically number one now, even though they're not admitted to being it, and Taiwan, China have always had a problem with that. I saw an interview with, weirdly, it was around the pandemic thing, and there was someone from the CDC got asked about the amount of corona cases in Taiwan, and even admitting that Taiwan exists is against the Chinese propaganda. They just include it as China. They say they own it. Taiwan is not an independent state.
What's the Taiwanese sea called then?
I know. I'm sure they call it the China Sea or something. And yeah, so this CDC guy, when he got asked about Thailand, he went, "Oh, you're breaking up. And you can see him fiddling with his computer and it goes off. He just cuts the interview off. He won't even answer a question about Taiwan because the CDC are funded by by China, and it's just, I don't know, he must have had some type of a directive. So yeah, this could be it. This could be, because the thing is, Taiwan is there's military forces from America in there. So if China decide this is their time to take it back, then this could be that's essentially what that symbolizes, is them coming after America, and so they're going to have to keep it back.
Who'd you root for, US or China?
I know, it's fucking bad.
This is a really good question. Absolutely.
US are overstepping my mark again and again and again, and stretching for more and more power. But we know what China are like.
Yeah,
you know, China are an extreme, but I suppose at least you know they're evil, whereas America pretend to be good.
I know. I think potentially the only difference between America and China is the fact that we get American PR and anti-China PR. I'd imagine if you were sat inside China, you'd be like, yeah, it's pretty bad here, but America's even worse. So yeah, I don't know. I almost don't think I probably really know what China's like, because I've just heard what the media said, and the fact that I don't trust the media anymore on anything, I actually in reality don't know what the hell it's like in China. But yeah, it's I think
not North Korea, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, number one, the world, no one benefits if we have World War III. That is, so if it even happens, if we even start this thing, it's not good for anyone. Everyone's going to get dragged into it. All the money's going to go into it. It's going to be horrendous. So I just really hope it doesn't happen.
But is it good for Bitcoin?
No. World wars aren't good for Bitcoin. It's if the world gets blown up, there's not economic activity. The Bitcoiners will be better off. We'll come out the other side of it. But who knows how much of your friends and family might get blown up, because China are going to bomb fucking everywhere. If it kicks off, if America freaking strike back, you're not safe in Britain now. Like they could turn.
What about in Wales?
Britain into Baghdad.
But this is exactly how it happens, isn't it? It just happens.
I said, what about Wales?
Yeah, Wales wouldn't notice because it's already a shithole.
Every week, there goes our Welsh viewers.
Anyway, should we move on to Bitcoin? Should we move on to Coinbase's earnings?
Yeah, let's do it.
Before we get too depressed about World War III.
I looked at this and I looked at the...
Someone got their phone too close to their speaker, by the way. It keeps buzzing.
Yeah, that's me. Go for it.
I looked at the share price and it's still not as high as the launch. So I thought that was a bit weird that they're smashing their targets. And their share price isn't as high as when they... what's it called?
IPO'd.
Yeah.
Yeah, that surprised me actually. Yeah, I didn't look at their share price, but because this story is just all about from when they first IPO'd, which I think is a year ago. So they've finally done like their second years of earnings now, or their second first quarter, and they 12x'd it. You got to remember, like Coinbase are already, I think they're like 7 or 8 years old, so they're not like a tiny startup. So doing 12x revenue when you're 3 years old is like, oh yeah, well done. You went from 1 million to 12 million. These guys did 200 million revenue in, I think it's Q2 or Q1, whichever one it is. Anyway, one of their quarters, they did 200 million this time last year. This quarter, they did 2 billion. That is absolutely fucking insane. That is crazy numbers. From going to 200 million, from 200 million to 2 billion in 1 year, that just shows you. And we're looking like, well, what happened the last year? What happened to Bitcoin? Oh, right, the price went from $3,000 to $65,000. It kind of makes sense. And a lot of it obviously went through Coinbase because they took a shit ton of money.
If you look at their price chart, it starts off about 342 on the IPO, and we're currently sitting on 250. So that's why, it surprised me that we know Coinbase do well because everyone has a lot of interest in them. And the products which they offer, but the fact that it's down to 250, I just kind of thought that was really strange because I haven't looked into the figures enough to actually understand.
If anything, I would hope maybe people are wising up, because it doesn't make sense to invest in Coinbase. Just buy the underlying asset, which is Bitcoin. Right? So there's no Bitcoiners that own Coinbase stock. We all know Coinbase are going to do great because Bitcoin's going to do great, and then Coinbase is going to be part of the winners. But will Coinbase stock keep up with Bitcoin gains?
Exactly.
That's the point. And I think most people don't think it will. So that's maybe why Coinbase isn't going up, because the people that were going to buy Coinbase that didn't want to buy Bitcoin have already bought it. The people that haven't bought it don't believe in Bitcoin, so don't want to buy it. And the ones that really get it just buy Bitcoin. Yeah. So they're in this weird place where
I also thought, when you invest in a company, so like your Teslas, you kind of think to yourself, well, what do they offer which is special? And I look at Coinbase and I don't entirely know what they do which is special, because there's all other crypto exchanges. I don't understand what their USP is.
It's market share.
They do, yeah, exactly that.
It's market share, word of mouth. What's the first name that comes to mind when you say
Bitcoin? It's Coinbase, but it is the exchange which I use. I think it's Mark uses Gemini.
That's it.
Some people use Kraken. I think Binance is the biggest one in the world, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
But that's only because they got the Chinese market.
Okay.
If they're allowed.
Yeah, and they're getting slapped down now, aren't they?
They got done in the UK as well.
Western world, yeah. But yeah, that's their USP. The USP is first mover advantage. They built the biggest and most stable and secure exchange 7 or 8 years ago, and they've got word of mouth.
And they also took over GDAX, for those that remember as well. So that gave them that Coinbase Pro capability. But I think they just make it super easy for people. And like you say, they've got great marketing dollars, and people just say, if you're going to set something up and you're going to trade in Bitcoin, go to Coinbase.
It's like with anything. Once you reach a certain scale, it's like, oh, why does everyone Google stuff? Why don't you go to DuckDuckGo or to a different search engine? Or why don't you buy a different phone? Like, I'm still an Apple user, unfortunately. There's just about every other phone on the market is just as good, but it's the one I know. It's the safe one, and I just stick with it, right? And that's why Coinbase. Now you don't need a USP. You just ship out the same old crap, and if anything, you end up where Coinbase are now. They're in such a dominant number one position, at least in the Western world. If you discount China, they can start increasing their fees, which is what they are doing. Their fees have only gone up. And they are now not the best exchange to buy Bitcoin on or even trade Bitcoin on. There's better exchanges that have lower fees, but it doesn't matter. People will still buy them there.
You've got me. Yeah, once I'm in the loop, once I'm in the network, it is what it is.
It's just, you just remind me, I've forgotten to, because I send my DCA every week to Coinbase Pro. So I've just gone into buy to make sure I change out of fiat into Bitcoin.
Nice. Do it live. Get it on the screen. Share it. Smash that buy button on the sats.
It's done already.
Oh, nice.
It's always got a buyer.
Yeah. Well, that's it.
Check the price.
You hit the nail on the head. People who
never look.
I've been looking quite a lot lately.
The price is going down, Ross. Buy more.
Yeah, I've just bought more.
Do it again.
I'd love for it to go down.
Oh, that's what you're saying.
I was just going to say, I think you hit the nail on the head, saying that, people who are really into Bitcoin buy Bitcoin, and the people who don't really understand it aren't going to buy Coinbase shares.
Yeah.
So makes sense. I think that's exactly right. I don't think there's anything more which we can really say about this story.
Also, as well, for Coinbase, they're in a really good position, because we know until things get easier, then people will just continue to stick with them. So they can increase the fees, and people will be like, I'll just pay it, because to them, it is what it is. Some people don't actually DCA every week or every month. So as and when they do buy, they will again just simply see it as, well, that's what it is. That's the fee that I've got to pay, not knowing that there are other exchanges that they could sign up with and obviously not pay as much. But for ease, I'll just stick with these guys. It's too much hassle. It's like the whole switching of a bank. Once you're in, and even though they've made it super easy with 7-day switching, you don't. You just stick with the same one.
Exactly. I was going to say exactly the same thing. Yeah, you sign up for a bank account or an exchange is a pain in the ass. You got to put your documents in, and then you just know there's all the fraud risk. So once you've taken money in and taken it out and done all that stuff, they kind of trust you now. You're like a you're an approved person in that system, and you just can't be asked going somewhere else. And then the first time you withdraw like $5,000, all the flags come up, your money gets frozen for 2 weeks. You're like, oh, for Christ's sake, because they think I'm a scammer. They want to phone you and ask you questions. And you're just like, well, I've gone through that with Coinbase. I've done all that with Coinbase. They know I'm legit now. I've got all my addresses bookmarked, all my bank accounts are saved. They know they're all legit. So I'm just whitelisted now. And yeah, and it's just, I think I heard like a stat that something like 90% of people, when they get signed up for a bank account at 18, they die with the same bank account. Like, people just do not move. They just don't. And I actually think it's the same with exchanges. Like, whichever exchange you sign up for first, regardless of how many good offers are going on elsewhere, like, 2% better fees or 3% better fees, they're like, fuck it, I'm just going to pay extra and stay here. I can't be arsed moving.
Yeah.
So
it's of least resistance.
It's true. I've still got my same account. It was
Halifax Mini Saver.
It was Midland, and now with HSBC. That's what I use as my kind of primary. I'm going to transfer it around joint account and Revolut account.
Yep, I'm the same. My mum and dad signed me up for a Barclays account. I still got it. It's technically probably my main one. Not really. Revolut, I kind of did transition to that, but I still have that same original Barclays account, which still has a load of bills coming out of it and stuff, which I got signed up for, I think, when I was 16. You know, it was a young saver account, and then they upgraded it to an adult one, and it's still there.
And then they offer you debt. I remember when I turned about 21 after I finished uni, I got offered credit cards, I got offered overdrafts, I got offered loans, all sorts, which I could have ended up in horrendous debt.
It's crazy. All Barclays Bank have done to me is try it and exploit me. Yeah, I still fucking buy their product by having my money there. Like, it's so dumb. I don't know what. But the problem is, there's no choice. Like, why? I was
going to say, what would another bank do? Come and massage your balls?
I know.
It's like, oh, guys, we're not going to exploit you. Ooh.
Get off my balls.
Exploit me.
Oh God, no, not a tickle.
I think moving on.
Yeah.
Bulgaria owning 213,000 Bitcoin, 1% of the total supply. Yes, that was a bit of news to me.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing about this is they've had it for some time, I read somewhere. Yeah. So they've had it since it was a fraction of, so what we got, it's 3 billion now. I think they had it from when it was tens or hundreds of thousands of pounds or dollars rather. So I suppose this is, how come they didn't sell? Is this their kind of emergency backup, or the fact that because it was confiscated, they've never had it in their government budget, so they've just gone, let's leave it there as a hedge. I thought it is really, really interesting.
This is interesting, isn't it? Because it also talks about, covers and captures states or countries with Bitcoin. And that's effectively where we're going to get to at some point. But the fact that they've kind of done it unknowingly is really interesting as well.
Is it unknowing?
Well, I say unknowingly, seized from a criminal network.
Yeah. No, it is unknowing, because the US government did the same thing. They did it with Silk Road. They took over something like 500,000 Bitcoins when they took over Silk Road. So as part of bringing down a criminal enterprise, they do seize all the assets. So they take the Lamborghinis, the houses, anything of value. So they also take the Bitcoin. So I think that is relatively legit. They've obviously, I don't know what this criminal enterprise have done, but they obviously had a huge amount of Bitcoin. I don't think it was from tens of thousands of dollars. I think it was either in the last 1 or 2 years. So I think they probably seized hundreds of millions, and now it's worth billions because we've 10x'd since they took it.
It's the fact they haven't sold it. You know, you would have thought if they had something which was worth a couple $100 million, a country like Bulgaria would have gone, fuck it, we're selling and we'll build
the problem is
some infrastructure.
All I can really think at the moment, and this could be potentially bearish news, because what I would think, America did the same, right? They seized the Silk Road coins, and it took them about a year to figure out what the fuck to do with them, and essentially just they auctioned them off. So just as they do with all the other stuff, they auctioned it, and then a load of people bought that 500,000 Bitcoin. That it got brought up by big private investors. And yeah, the American government got totally screwed on that, because that was back in 2014, 2015. Bitcoin was like $100 or $200 a coin.
Well, apparently they've got 144,000 now, is what I read somewhere.
Yeah, it's
America.
on there. Yeah, America, the FBI reportedly holds a figure of 144,000 bitcoins, again as a result of the Silk Road crackdown. But
I
what
think they
would be
sold them.
interesting?
That's wrong. They sold. That's the bit they sold.
Okay. What would be interesting, I guess, for Bulgaria is the fact that this is 18% of its national debt. If they could just continue to hodl, they could wipe out their national debt
Well,
and put them
you've
in a
got
position of real power
Yeah.
because they would have no debt in their country.
you've got your traditional approach, which would be to try and clear out the debts as quickly as possible. So it'd be sell. But countries, the economics around it, they must be onto this way, saying we can never get rid of the debt, can we? Because of a flawed fiat system. So it does intrigue me. It's one which I'll be watching because if they did ever sell it, it will cause a massive fluctuation in the price of Bitcoin. But if they do keep it, then if we do head towards Bitcoin standard, then they are within the top 100 countries automatically. They're about 72nd now, is what I've got on my screen. So they got a guarantee that will be in the top 100. So they won't go down, but they may go up.
Yeah, with 1% of the supply, that is massive. That's they've got more coins here than Sailor.
Yeah, they probably got the most coins worldwide. Actually, what's the wallet with the most coins in?
One of Satoshi's.
Yeah, isn't it a million or something like that?
Yeah, I think there's a few that are rumored that might add up to 1 million, but I think there's like a couple of wallets with 200,000 or 300,000 coins in. Yeah.
Okay. So this could be a bigger play than just being in the top 100 countries. If it does go to Bitcoin stand, this could be super rich.
Yeah, right. I think the decision that those politicians make on this wallet will define their country over the next 100 years. If they decide to hodl, even if they just go, you know what, we'll say it will sell 10, 20%. If I was probably them as a politician and I want to save some face, I would sell 20%. It's hundreds of millions, like 500 million or something. Do something good with that. Make a name for myself. It's free money, right? You've taken it from criminals. It wasn't supposed to be your money. You've got it. Sell 500 million, freaking save the world somehow, save your country. And then just hodl the other 2.5 billion. If that turned into 25 billion, 250 billion, then now you would literally save Bulgaria. Yep. And you could be one of the richest countries in the world.
But if you sell now, it's what do we say, 18% of their national debt?
That's right.
They're going to go straight back into debt. They're going to build that back up in a few years' time. It's fucking nothing.
Well, this is where we'll see high time, low time preference of countries, won't we?
Yeah. What's the point in them selling now?
No, exactly.
They might as well hodl. Like, there's no advantage for them to gain right now. They might as well have an experiment to see if the fiat collapses, like we all hope it does.
It just depends if they get it, though, because like all governments do, when they seize these assets, they just liquidate it all. Like, it doesn't matter what they get, whether it's watches, stocks, shares, cars, houses. Whenever they get this stuff, they just auction it all off. They know they don't get optimum price, but they just offload it and then they just take the money because they're not in the business of like just accumulating criminals kind of like random shit and then they have to like manage it. So it's whether they realize what they have. If they don't realize what they've got, and hopefully if they do sell it, it might not dump the price because what they can do is to sell it OTC, like over the counter. And then so say they've got 3 billion worth here. If a sailor rocks up, and if I was a sailor and I got a couple of million in my bag, I would go over to Bulgaria and go, look, your 3 billion, if you dump that on the market, you only get 1.5 billion anyway, because the price will fucking halve because you're just going to tank the market. What I'll do, I'll give you 2 billion for your 3 billion. Just send it to my wallet and I'll send you the cash. So then the trade never happens on the market. It just happens like, it's like me sending you some Bitcoin. Like no one knows the transaction happened, right? It wasn't a buy and a sell. It was just that Bitcoin moved from that address to that address. It never went to an exchange, got sold, and all the buyers then had to buy it up. So that's what I'd be doing. If I was a billionaire Bitcoiner, I'd be sniffing around Bulgaria government, trying to tell them how shitty Bitcoin is. And like, yeah, it's a bit of a Ponzi. But by the way, I'll buy it.
I'll take this off your hands.
I'll buy it on for like, about 50%. I'll buy it for half price and just take it off your hands. Easy.
But if you think about it, like I'll bring up the country list. So who's above Bulgaria? Iran, Austria, Norway, Nigeria, Israel, Ireland, Singapore, Colombia, all these countries are way and way above. Bulgaria aren't catching these. They don't have any real industry there, do they?
No.
This is their one chance. Like,
Well, they
I think
have the tourist industry, and that's gone to shit.
If they sell, they just ease off their debt. They go back into that debt within 3 years' time or whatever it is. If they hodl, they got the chance of being one of the biggest countries, a financial services center for the new Bitcoin standard. I just think
Bulgarian listeners watching with family members in politics.
Sign me up. I'll come and work for you.
Sign me up. Send me up.
Hodl.
Exactly, that's what I was saying. If they hodl that Bitcoin, it will revolutionize Bulgaria. They will go from a nothing to one of the big players.
This is really one of those the beauty of the podcast as well, because we can call this right now. So, episode 18, the world's most bullish podcast, Mr. All-In, Dr. Evil 10%, and Sir Neverlook said on this date, watch Bulgaria become the biggest country in the world by simply hodling. It'd be amazing.
So, here we go. Bulgaria, 75th on this list by GDP. Who's above them? Ghana, Panama, Luxembourg, Myanmar, Oman, Guatemala, Dominican Republic, Kenya, Ethiopia. Like, these are countries which we said over the years, like Ethiopia, who are piss poor.
Ethiopia ahead of them.
Yeah.
What did Ethiopia do to be ahead of Bulgaria?
Well,
is that the Olympic money?
It might be populations 106 million in Ethiopia, whereas Bulgaria is 7 million.
Yeah.
So that's GDP as a total rather than per head.
Yeah, they're a tiny country. Yeah, I think they're okay financially. It's just they're very small.
GDP per capita. Let's try that bad boy. So a bit higher up. Still, where are you? You're still quite far down.
While you're doing that, I think this is a really good point. And again, we've touched on this before, but it's not only going to be the transfer of wealth from individuals, those that are wealthy and those that are not, to, countries being wealthier to those that aren't. And importantly, and you touched on it earlier on as well, Gaz, you cannot move those, the hard assets. So, I like property, but should something happen in the UK, I can't physically liquidate property. I can't move with it, whereas I can with Bitcoin. Same with gold. Gold is heavy. Gold is typically manned, and it's...
I was going to say, you're going to need a loading truck or something,
yeah,
right?
You're going to need a loading truck. It's just not physically capable.
Phone's still too close, by the way, Darnell. It's beeping a lot.
Further. It's just not possible for anybody to do it. So Bitcoin, all you got to do is remember there's 12 or 14 words, and then you're away.
And you can get your prison metal so you can hide it.
Super safe.
That should be the advert for it. Prison metal, super safe.
Weirdly, someone was talking about this on Twitter, and they were actually talking about actually shoving those things up their ass and going through borders with them. I was like, do not do that.
Don't do that.
Because the metal detectors are going to go off.
Yeah. And
they're going to see a fucking metal tube in your ass, and they're going to want to see what's in it. And then, so do not take the metal backups. They need, ideally, if you're going to change countries, they have to be destroyed before you go. You have to scratch the shit out of them, or just destroy them in some shape or form, bury them in concrete. And then what you take over the border is those words, but either in your head or on paper in some shape or form. Do not take metal seed words over borders. It'll beep, and they're going to actually directly look for them, and then they're going to start reading out words, aren't they? And if you're leaving a tyrannical government and they suddenly find 12 words on a sheet of metal paper, or 12 little ringlets of words, they're going to know exactly what they are. They're going to confiscate them, and they're going to go and put them into their ledger, and they're going to steal your Bitcoin.
Yeah. Especially if it's up your ass.
Yeah. It's not going to be a fun process of them getting it out from
you. Well, since we're on countries about Bulgaria, is it worth moving on to Argentina?
Yeah.
We love this. We love this kind of news. We're on the countdown to El Salvador. Is it the 1st of September when that's actually official?
Right. Yeah, 1st of
September. And then we got Argentina talking about it. The first thing which I thought about this was, where's Pakistan? Why aren't Pakistan adopting this? But we'll take Argentina. So I had a look at this, and since 1921, Argentina has had average annual inflation of 105%. So before 1921, they were one of the financial powerhouses of the world, which no one seems to appreciate. So that's, where all their heritage has come from. But for the last 100 years, they cannot control themselves. Like, they are a bunch of fucking idiots.
Yeah, no governments can once they get access to the money printer.
Yeah, but
I was going to say that. Yeah,
but this is literally like someone who eats himself to death. You got the fat people, the obese people, and you got Argentina over there who will not stop eating. Within a day, it's killed itself. That is literally where Argentina are. Like, America is the obese one. Argentina's a dead one. And it's changed.
Like a crane to lift them out of bed to take them to hospital.
No, but they're just fucking dead because they've eaten that much.
Taking the side of the wall off just so that they can get a bath, Yeah.
Well, why do they need a bath? They're fucking dead. They just need to put them on the ground. And they changed their currency 5 times. So a couple of examples: peso, moneda nacional, peso ley. So you've got all these kind of things. They cannot control themselves. Their politicians cannot be trusted. They've had a once in a lifetime tax where they've taken off their citizens who have, above 10,000 pesos, which is some like, it's less. It was 100,000 pesos, and it was like the equivalent of £1,000 or something. They're taking 10% off their citizens, and that was relatively recently. So, and it's only 7th in the World Inflation Index. So behind countries such as Venezuela, Sudan, Lebanon, Iran, Syria, Suriname, however you pronounce it. But it is ranked the most miserable place in the world.
Wow.
Like how we were saying before, where women's rights in the West, they're more advanced, and then you look at other countries and they're just behind. And in reality, like, we're all going to end up in the same place. And listing those countries you just listed there, all they are is they're more advanced in reality. Like, the fiat game has played out faster there. And we look at Britain and America and the rest of Europe and go, oh, that's never going to get there. But in reality, this is the equivalent of women's rights. It's just a progression. Like, human beings will always get there. Like, when fiat money is created, you always end up where Venezuela are right now, with hyperinflation in Zimbabwe and Argentina.
Wasn't Venezuela to do with the US? Didn't they basically screw them over because they wanted to not sell or buy oil in dollars?
Yeah, it's part of the
I'm going to take this away, and I'm going to come back to it. I'm going to do the history of these countries, because I think, similar to like the petrodollar, once you understand the history, you'll then obviously follow the money, and then we'll be able to then confidently and accurately talk about how and why they've ended up in the position that they are. So hold that thought, actually.
Yeah, it's a good one. But because like, my answer would be, in reality, like, the world is complicated, right? Like, governments like running countries and like having to manage trade agreements with all these different countries, and like the war kind of threats, and just managing health, education, all that stuff. It is hard. You make mistakes. And if you don't have any backup plan, then you have to accept the consequences of your actions. But weak people and politicians want to appear good all the time and want to appear strong. When they fuck up, well, no matter why they fucked up, like, sometimes it can be a bully coming into the playground and stealing their lunch money, like America do all the time. Instead of just taking the hit and having to go to your people and go, look, America came in and smashed us, and we now have to cut benefits and cut the education. Instead of doing that, you go, let's just hide it, try and appear strong, and print our way out of it.
100%.
And then, so this is the thing, like, once you have access to the money printer, it all ends up in the same place. And it's, of course, and as we've always said, it's the strongest countries go down last, and it's the weaker countries that go down first. It's pretty much whoever's the strongest in the playground, they beat everyone else up, and they start at the smallest and they work their way up. And that's what we're seeing. These small countries are getting smashed to pieces and have been. And they've had to try and print themselves out of it. The music stops eventually. They hit hyperinflation and their countries get decimated. And but yeah, it's interesting to see Argentina now, and their president actually, got asked about Bitcoin, and he wasn't as positive as like this El Salvador president was, but he went, "We'll look into it," which is huge progress based on where we've been the last couple of years. Before, no one had even asked him the question. He wouldn't have even known what the hell they're talking about, but he actually went, "It does sound interesting." It's something that, because I think fundamentally the good thing is about Argentina, it's a little bit like of El Salvador.
Yeah.
You've run out of options. Like the money printer kind of is worthless now. Like, it doesn't matter how many trillion you print out, it's still worth, a beef burger. So it's a case of, actually, the only way of trying to fix this now, the money printer, our one anyway, is now essentially broken. So we might as well actually just try and fix things properly. Yeah, and bringing in a Bitcoin standard is actually the way to fix it properly, because it removes the greed element from politicians that can't just print themselves out of problems anymore.
Yeah, and ultimately their volatility is higher than Bitcoin's volatility. Yeah. And this was, again, one of the things that Jeff Booth talked about in The Price of Tomorrow. Why does somebody want to see their money completely deflated? I think he said like something ridiculous, like 180%. Inflated to 180% in comparison to a swing of 30% in Bitcoin, and knowing that Bitcoin is going to increase in price, where the Argentinian dollar, I think that's what they use, is just simply going to decrease. But also, I did the research, as we talked about on one of our podcasts, on the demise of the British Empire as well. Oh, yeah. So did loads of classic YouTube videos doing that geeky thing. And the reason why the pound decreased was, again, because of war. And so it goes back to ego. We didn't necessarily have to have a war in terms of the Second World War, but we were like, yep, we're all in. And we went all in, and it actually cost us all of that sovereignty in terms of all of the various different countries, but also as well, there was an increase in the Commonwealth countries in terms of which we overtook, wanting to have their own sovereignty once again, in terms of, we want to be independent, but it was due to war. We just couldn't manage it. And so that's where it came from. But it's all about ego. It's all about typically human nature and the human trait. And we just, we see it and we just can't give it up.
Yeah. Good. Weirdly, I looked into it a little bit as well. I looked at the Roman Empire and how that fell. And essentially they went on to fiat. So they took all the gold and they started writing notes, and they're giving out paper.
Is it notes? I thought it was the originally the coins had so many ounces of gold or certain measures along with silver, and they removed the gold so much that it went down to silver, and they actually introduced some other kind of metal into it as well because they got so greedy.
Yeah. So essentially, it's a form of fiat. Yeah. So as before, the money was 1-to-1. The gold was 1-to-1, and they slowly but surely removed it and went, "Don't worry, we're good for it. Return these coins, and we'll exchange it for gold." But then they basically went into inflation mode.
Lannister always pays its bills.
Exactly. And the Roman Empire fell when their own soldiers started refusing the money they were being paid. They went, "Enough of this crap. We want the gold." And when the Roman Empire didn't have the gold to pay their soldiers just walked away.
Well, it's also because they had weird policies, so kind of related to nowadays, because I think we touched upon it. So I think this was within the Bitcoin standard and a couple of other books where they were giving free food to all sorts of people around Rome, so they didn't have any need to actually work. So they weren't farming the fields. They're hanging around the streets of Rome getting fucking drunk and getting free food because they didn't have to actually work. So it's basically a full-on benefit system. And you have got the parallels with to nowadays where there's not the impetus to actually work. So, well, I suppose looking at the kind of like extreme right-wing view is you can overpopulate the world, not worry about it because someone's going to pick up the tab for you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is the thing. This is the thing that like I've seen a couple of really like good takes on Twitter about this, where obviously we've got this Taliban news is slightly woken people up a little bit, because like the mainstream news in America and probably Britain over the last like year or so, if you ignore the pandemic stuff, it's all been about pronouns, genders, like Black Lives Matter. Like we're just infighting on bollocks, complete and utter bollocks. And when this is the sign of like when an empire falls, right? Because we're infighting about things that just don't matter. And then you suddenly look at places like Afghanistan, and they're fighting for their lives. And that's real shit. That's the kind of stuff that kind of builds people and like creates great people that come out the side of that. And that's essentially how empires get built. But empires,
harsh times create great people build great empires. Great empires build lazy people, and lazy people create harsh times. So it's a big cycle.
Yeah. And when you look at where would you put us on that cycle? Like, Jesus Christ, we're obviously on the end. Like, clearly, we're so lazy. So, like, if people don't get exactly the amount of benefits every month that they demand and get called by the right pronoun, they want to overthrow the government. Like, you've got no clue how good you got it. No clue. Like, you could be living in Afghanistan right now, and you'd just be happy to be alive.
Did I see your pronouns on LinkedIn, Gus?
Yeah, Bitcoin/BTC.
I saw a post today, and I was like, "Oh God, he hasn't got Twitter, so he's posting away on LinkedIn."
I saw that as well. I saw that. I was like, "Oh, he just needs an outlet, doesn't he?" So he's on LinkedIn. He needs some form of social media.
I do. I literally do. I've been like spamming my freaking like chats. Everyone that I know has been getting articles and comments, and like no one's replying. But I'm just like,
yeah,
I need
this guy. He doesn't normally contact us.
Yeah, why does he send me random articles about freaking inflation? I'm like, it matters. It's like I haven't got my plebs, my Bitcoin plebs. Like, I can't express my views. I'm being muzzled.
How long's the countdown until you're unmuzzled?
It's another 5 days, I think. It's until Sunday.
Gosh. Oh.
Yeah, weirdly, it probably leads us on to one of the stories, actually, because the reason why I got banned was this like FUD of the week.
Mr. Orlin, Menace to Society, has been banned for Twitter for 7 days.
Basically calling Elon Musk a retard. And the reason I did it was there was an article that came out where Mark Cuban was saying Doge was better money than Bitcoin, because in his experience of running the Mavs, they've received more Dogecoin than Bitcoin. So therefore, Bitcoin is not as good as money as Dogecoin.
More fooled him like taking that shit.
And he's using a sample size. Like, he's even admitted he's only accepted $10,000, and I can guarantee that's probably one Dogecoin guy just gave him $10,000, brought a load of shit. So it's like, it's such a bollocks argument. But underneath this article, Elon Musk tweets, "I've been saying this for a while." So I reply, "You've been a retard for a while." and within minutes, I'm banned. I'm pretty sure the Dogecoin guys all reported me, because it happened so fucking quick. And so like Twitter aren't reading the tweets that fast. So I'm pretty sure the Dogecoin guys just got me. Like, they all reported it. And I think if like you get 10 reports in like a minute, it just auto bans. So I'm pretty sure that might have been what happened. And yeah, banned for a week for that. That sounds harsh. But
no, you post on
retard in Twitter film isn't very good.
What's that?
The word retard in Twitter film isn't. Yeah, it's frowned upon, basically.
It is. It's a hate word.
Yeah.
I tried to appeal it, and I just went, "I'm just calling Elon slow. That's the official definition of the word." And they just replied going, "You broke our rules, you're banned." I'm like, okay. But it is like, retard means slow.
Hey, maybe that should be your first. Do you know what? I think it's a fine line, isn't it? So once you get banned, do you come back nicey, or do you then still have that kind of angst in you to be like, well, actually, are you going to post the Oxford Dictionary definition of retard and hope that nobody sees it?
I know. It's like OK Dude, isn't it?
Yeah, OK Dude.
He came back with like, being banned from saying OK Dude to like a video of him dancing around in a load of OK Dude merch. Like, it's like fair play. But Yeah, I don't know. I think because in reality, this is the third time I've been banned now. It started at 12 hours, then it went to 48 hours. Now it's 7 days. So I think
All right, Trump.
I think it's 3 strikes and you're out. So that is my third strike technically. So I think the next time I do step out of line, I think I'm gone. I'd have to start again. I have to build up all my Bitcoin plebs again, which is going to be a bit annoying. So unfortunately, I think
do you like free up your name when you go? So could you just sign up with your name again, or would
it gets like just parked and like no one can have it? Yeah.
Why don't you post something? Why don't you post like the dribbling picture? I don't know if you can actually see that.
Oh
Yeah.
Yeah, I could do that. Yeah.
Instead of saying it, just post the dribbling picture like someone did. A 70% pre-mine coin that is switching to proof of stake as decentralized finance.
Yeah,
and they posted that, and
in
relation
to Ether.
Yeah, that's a smarter way of doing it because you're basically calling people that buy ETH a retard, but you're not saying it. You're just showing them a retarded picture.
I saw that. It just made me laugh. I was
it's
just
like, a meme, isn't it? It says everything with a picture. A good meme, anyway.
Good meme about Bitcoin, which I said I think I shared with the group, and I sent it to another group, and no one paid any attention to it. So I was like, fuck you all, have fun staying poor.
Sorry if you're watching on, if you're listening on Audible, by the way, or on Apple or Android. But all of this, I think you can probably link it in the show notes, can't you?
Yeah, I can link it all. Yeah.
Because I think that's a great meme to explain Bitcoin. It just explains the fact about money printing and ultimately scarcity.
Unfortunately, the meme is for Bitcoiners though.
Correct.
It's like only Bitcoiners get it. Like with the meme you just put on there, which is like that retarded kid trying to shove a square box into a round hole.
We don't like the word retarded. That's a hate word, guys. Otherwise you'll be banned from a pod for 7 minutes.
Yeah.
We've been talking about the Taliban for half an hour. We're already cancelled.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that meme everyone would get because it's super simple. You're just saying, look, you're retarded if you buy this. You're literally trying to ram a square block into a round hole. That's what you're doing if you're buying Ethereum.
Yeah.
Whereas the other meme that you had laid it out all nicely. It was brilliant. But Bitcoiners just instantly get each panel and just like, yep, perfect. No coiners and shit coiners, like they either have no clue what the dates and what the meaning of the thing is, or they don't care.
I also dropped the hard money video into the group because I figured that's a good one because it's not necessarily pumping Bitcoin, it is talking about the actual issues with fiat, and I think that's the thing which got me going because I think you did talk to me about Bitcoin early on. I didn't get it because I didn't really understand money, so it's actually understanding those core concepts. And if I'd seen that video say 5 years ago and actually sat down and watched it, I would have gone, oh.
But also as well, it's like, the purpose of the podcast is education and it's building blocks, but you're probably like you're like midway or 70-80% through the course. They need course 101,
I feel that's about the flaws of fiat. And I think the hard money video is probably one of the best, which would explain that about how bullshit it all is.
So when you start off there, then they'll actually pay more attention to, 1971, Richard Nixon, August 15th. What does that actually mean? And then,
I've had no comments.
You won't. You won't.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit like marketing. Like it takes 12 times for you to see a brand before you buy. Yeah. That's on average. And I think with Bitcoin, it's not 12. It's like 112.
Yeah.
So each time you do it, each time you send a meme in or a video, maybe one person clicks it, maybe they watch it, it builds up. It's like you just got to layer it. It's like snow. Just layer it. And everyone has a different tipping point, but eventually it tips and they suddenly go, fuck, this is something. I'm going to start reading.
To me about this. Yeah. What was
I'm going to wait for one of them who says how expensive beef or chicken or their soy burgers getting. Then I'll be like, watch the fucking video which I sent to you, dickhead.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that actually as well, because I've got another friend that sometimes does listen, and we were talking about tradesmen and their daily rate of how it's gone up. And I think, they are equally starting to feel the pinch, hence the reason why they're increasing their rates. But it's, he's down south and I'm up north, and equally we're both saying exactly the same thing. And they've got somebody in the Midlands also saying the same thing about tradesmen's day rates.
It's interesting because we've had this through work, so particularly around the technology where people have been moving quite a lot lately.
Yeah.
So this is product roles, testing, developers, and it's because inflation, so the rates have gone up, and we're starting to see it slowly go. But I think next year is really going to be the boom year where we're going to see either companies are going to have to pay a lot more or staff are going to move a lot more.
Yeah. It surprises me that in software it's going up, but definitely in the trade system, because there's goods. Like literally the cost of the stuff that they need to build with, all the wood, the soil, the cement, the paint, all that stuff. There's huge supply shocks around the world right now, because I think, and this is what people are actually starting to predict, that there is going to be a supply shortage, like a proper one, because we've had 18 months of not really manufacturing to anywhere near the degree that we need to. So when everyone comes out and like really starts just getting back to work, there isn't anything.
Yeah.
It's like this little anecdotal things, like, my sister's fiance, he runs a golf club, and there's a massive shortage on golf clubs, specifically the golf grips. You just can't get them anywhere. They just don't exist. And it's just, there's little anecdotal examples like that in just about every single business you can get. And like, people are walking into his golf shop going, how much for a club? And he's like, I can't get one. So you literally, you could give me 5 times the price. I can't get it.
It's a mixture of it's a mixture of production and also people being bored for 18 months and doing a lot of hobbies or attempting to do a bit of hobbies. So like golf, cycling, we both saw, looking at bikes, weren't available anywhere. So everyone just gone out, spent their money, bought a bike, gone about 5 times, not cycled again. And so you're going to end up with a buoyant second-hand market once furlough ends, and certainly when we have a bit of a crash.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting actually as well. I think it was either today or yesterday that Biden announced the food stamps that the poorest in America get, they're going to increase it by 25%.
Wow.
So, and essentially, like, where does inflation hit the most? Like, it hits the poor, right? Because
if that's not an admission, then I don't know what is.
I know, exactly. It's a 100% admission of that is what inflation is, because the people on the breadline, if inflation goes up 10% faster than what they have, they literally don't eat that month, because they are literally spending every penny they get, they spend just to survive. So when inflation beats them by 10%, then they're fucked. And so what they've had to do to make sure the people don't starve in America is up the food stamps by 25%. So I think that's a really good metric, actually. Now that I've seen this, is if you want to know what inflation is, take a look how much the food stamps increases in your country. That is inflation, not the bollocks that they announce that, it's 2%. No, it's not. Inflation is 25% in America.
I wonder if we can get a chart on food stamps and the price of food stamps, because I think you're absolutely right and you're onto something there.
I think it was once again referring to, I think, hard money. And it was a bit where Saifedean Ammous was talking around food. So what do they call it? Is it a CPI index?
Yeah.
So we talk about what's in the basket, and it starts off talking about how ribeye you could get it for $1 originally.
Yes.
Now then it started changing to various other things like mince, and then it changed to a soy patty, and now it won't even cover a soy patty. And it's just like, that's what people don't understand, is they're going, it's 2% because the soy patty's out of reach now, but in fact the ribeye is about 8 times the price now.
Yeah,
it's how they game it, and it's fucking disgraceful.
And I'm sure anybody listening will certainly confirm that their food bill and their shopping bill has gone up.
Yeah, definitely seen that.
18 months. Yeah, shorter dates, and they know it. In terms of the life and the expiry date of the food, so they keep on getting you to come back. Obviously, you can freeze stuff, but your fresh food, you can't. And so that money has also gone up in price as well.
Have you seen? There's a third thing as well: the shrinkflation. So essentially, what they do is they keep the packet the same size, but there's less in it. If you look at how many grams or liters are in it, there's less. So, like when we used to, people used to think that our Mars bar is getting smaller, and people used to go, no, you're getting bigger. But no, if you look back, Mars bars have got smaller. They actually have. They've reduced the size of loads of things. And they say it's for health reasons and whatever. But in reality, all it is they hide the inflation. And I must admit, these companies are not complicit in trying to hide inflation for any like nefarious reasons. All they are doing is trying to make you buy their product. Yeah. So they know that you think, let's just say it's a Mars bar and let's just take 50p. They just want to, like, if their costs have gone up 10%, what they should do is now charge you that Mars bar for 55p. But instead, what they'll do is go, let's remove 5p of cost. So they'll give you, say, 10% less Mars bar and still charge you 50p. So then you as a consumer walk in and go, oh, great, Mars bars are still 50p. But in reality, you're getting less product. So that's another way that inflation hits you. So even though maybe your shopping doesn't go up in price, you might be getting less food.
Do you remember Viennettas?
Yeah, I remember Viennettas.
I had one probably about a year ago, and everyone thought I was mad. I was like, I swear this used to be a lot bigger when I was a kid. And they're like, it's big to a little. I'm like, no, I swear it was actually big. Whereas now, it's like that. And I was just like, what's this? I could eat that on my own.
But in one sitting?
Oh, yeah.
Also, you mentioned something and I jotted it down in terms of talking about costs and obviously people wanting pay rises in technology. And I think you touched on it just there, Gaz, that should actually be going down because technology is getting better and automation should be kicking in, or you don't need as many people to do it. But people are still demanding those higher wages because, again, things are going up. But at some point, things should be going down because automation and technology is getting better. So
everyone's working at home as well, so their costs are lower.
Exactly.
So, I think they're just trying it on.
Yeah, I think they're trying it on.
There's been a lot of movement in the last, say, few months.
They're just trying to get away from you, mate. That's all.
Can't blame them.
In reality, no one wants to work in your shitty company, so they're going, you have to pay me a fucking fortune to come in that shithole.
Especially when you delete agendas.
That's what I was going to say. It should be like Dr. Delete 10%.
Yeah.
Oh, boo hoo hoo.
I still actually know. Weirdly, I had an article that went missing, and so did you, Dana. I have no clue what it was.
Dr. Evil 10% deleted our agenda.
I was going to say, when you use your shitty Apple apps.
I know. It actually made me Google, do notes have a revision history? And it's straight away, the first comment was no. I'm like, I'm fucked. Is it pretty much once it syncs, that is the only version? I'm like, bollocks.
I was using my my iPhone in order to get it, and now I've just gone, okay, I'll get it through a browser. So I went, surely you can get it through a browser, you can. So I've now got it as a favourite, so I can actually pull the list off that instead and make my notes.
Maybe you could save it that way, just in case you make another dumb mistake.
Fuck you both.
You should have deleted a little bit of it. If you deleted all of it, I'd be really upset.
Yeah, especially because it's got all the old ones as well, which is great in terms of all the old topics. Maybe you should make a backup of that.
That's a very good point. I will make a backup of this.
Yeah, because again, I guarantee, we listen to it, we love it. And anybody else that's out there and subscribes, likes and shares, thank you. But ultimately, it's the fact that you can go back to this and be like, oh, do you remember on this? And then when it comes true, I'll be like, aha, we told you so.
So what we got as our predictions, we've got around Bitcoin mooning. We've got El Salvador prospering. What else? Yeah. What else we had? And then China versus US. Is that another one?
That's guaranteed to happen.
And we've already seen the initial whitewashing of the media against Afghanistan, so it makes it look better for America.
the collapse of the US dollar at some point, and this is what I think we touched on it just last week. It's been happening, but we will see, touch wood, in our lifetimes, and not because I want it to happen, I just don't want to die tomorrow, in terms of we will see the collapse of the US dollar in our lifetimes.
So never look, mate. You may not want it to happen. I do.
I think there's a load of lockdown stuff we predicted, all the jabs, lockdown happening time and time again. Yeah. All of it. If you go back 3 months, it's all there. And it's unfortunate we didn't start this a year ago, because it would have been really. I would have been really telling you guys I told you so, because when it all started, I was like, they're going to keep doing this. That's why I went to Sweden, to get away from it. I'm like, once they get a hold of you and they realize everyone complied, they're not going to let go of this. They're going to lock you down every winter now. And it's going to call it a new variant. It's going to give it a name. It's just going to be the flu each time. Then they're going to want to jab you every winter. And it's like, it's all coming.
So do you think it's going to happen this winter?
Yep. Guaranteed lockdown and booster shots.
So another lockdown. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Episode 18, World's Bullest Podcast is happening.
See, I don't know, because I think the protests have got that big.
Yeah.
I think the protests have got a bit out of hand. Like, we've seen France trying to introduce the vaccination passport, and everyone just went wild. You've got the UK, there's something like 300 or 500,000 people in London protesting against lockdown. Surely it's hit a tilting point where they can't do it anymore.
And also, that people have been vaccinated now. There's a wide population that have had either one jab or two jabs, not the third jab and their booster. And you're still saying that there's going to be another lockdown.
Yeah, Bitty wants his dividend payment.
That was possibly the time which LinkedIn made me laugh the most when I read that.
Yeah,
and I think you are arguing with people that we work with as well.
Yeah.
No, they were arguing with me. I was on a random thread. They come and fucking find me.
Well, we'll see. Because I reckon not, but obviously
I'm going with them as well.
I would say happy to be proven wrong, but I would not be happy to be proven wrong.
No, absolutely. I'm the one that would be happy to be proven wrong. I really hope this ends. Like, I would never. I wish back in March 2020 I'd been proven wrong right then, that this whole thing did not play out the way it had. I would have loved to have been a conspiracy theorist, and for you guys to all be laughing at me, going, "Haha, you thought they were going to do all this stuff, and none of it happened." I've never been more disappointed to be right. It's been horrendous this last 18 months, and I would love for it to end. Would not want nothing more. But I don't think they're going to let go of this. This is what we see. They're going to lock down every winter, and until we get the level of what they want is the level of compliance, and we're not at that level right now. There's still too many people like me that are refusing to get jabbed and just don't want to do it. So they're going to need to keep the pressure on to make it just part of our routine. We just
to help Grandma.
Exactly. Just every winter, you roll up, you get your booster shot, but he gets his dividend payment, and we all go on with our day. That's what they want. And at the moment, they haven't got that into our psyche yet. So I think they're going to do another winter of it. They're going to punish everyone. And then what they're going to do, by the way, this is how they're going to justify it. Because you're right, most people have been vaccinated. There's still about 25% that haven't been. They're going to blame us. They're going to blame me and go, I'm spreading whatever variant. Look at all the deaths that are going on.
I've heard Lambda.
Yeah, there's Lambda, there's whatever. There's going to be whatever. And even though they don't have a test to differentiate between the variants, which is still hilarious. That's my favorite question, that I just go around and go, how are you testing for variants? Because the CDC have even admitted there is no comprehensive test that tests between variants. It takes months in the lab to actually figure out a different virus variant. And so these little swabs, there's no way of telling which variant it is.
But so, Gus, you've been spreading before COVID.
I've been spreading STDs, not very
yeah. Right. Anyway, we've gone completely sidetracked onto COVID. We talked about our predictions, so we'll leave it there.
Yeah.
And what we're on to Rect of the week. So Poly hacked for 600 million. So did you talk about this last week?
This is new.
So this is a decentralized finance platform where they had 600 million stolen. But like we said, why would you put your Bitcoin onto a platform like that with the risk of it not being paid back or stolen? It's your own fucking fault that it gets stolen. But of course it didn't, because they sent out a letter saying, please, can we have our money back? And apparently the money was returned because they offered they returned 600 million because they offered a £500,000 reward or dollar.
Yeah. Bug bounty.
I think, you talked about whether it could be a marketing ploy, but I think it just highlights how fucking stupid that whole thing is.
Yeah.
To risk your stack for, what is it, 6%?
Yeah, it's just shit coins being shit, isn't it? It's like DeFi being, it's ridiculous, isn't it? Because obviously they
While giving some context to the story in terms of that.
Yeah. So there's Poly, there's a new coin, and they've got a smart contract. And yeah, it's some type of DeFi, where you get percentage gains on your coins. They're going to do a load of like crazy DeFi shit with it, whatever. But they collected a load of money, and then they just lost it all. Just all got hacked out the back door. There's a fault in the smart contract, and this hacker just drained the entire bit in minutes. And it all kicked off over Twitter. Loads of people were crying about it. They're like, they lost like all their life savings in it. Everyone very upset. But yeah, and weirdly, they on Twitter, they were claiming they knew the guy that had it. Apparently, some of the coins had hit an exchange. They had his ID, but it looked like, are they just faking it? We don't really know. But yeah, they were the letter they wrote was great. It literally said like, "Dear hacker, like, please do the right thing." And like, they've got 600 million, right? This is such an enormous amount of money that if you're going to steal that amount, like, come on, like, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you can just disappear now. Like, buy as many IDs as you want and just freaking buy a mansion in the hills and never be seen again. Like, just leave 500 million, just leave it sat there. Just be smart with the first 100 million, kind of like cleanse it out, move it to address, sell it locally. You could have easily done that.
Couldn't you just put it into what's it called?
CoinJoin.
CoinJoin.
Yeah, the problem is you got to get it into Bitcoin that way. So it's in Poly at the moment. And weirdly, actually, it wasn't all in Poly either. Like, the contract had Ethereum in it, had Bitcoin in it, it had Tether in it. It was a very weird mix of coins. I think you could stake lots of different crypto in this Poly network or Poly contract. So yes, so they could have coin joined a load of it, yeah. But the problem is this type of amounts, like, you can't coin join this level, but you could just coin join a couple of million, and that would get you out of the country at least. So yeah, but it's all very weird. Yeah, it doesn't really make sense. I have no clue, because no one had ever even heard of Poly until they got hacked. No, never mind the fact they had 600 million worth in their coin.
Have they actually?
Yeah, I know, it's all very dodgy, isn't it? Because well, technically they did, because 600 million worth of value did leave, and then it did return again. Like, if you count up how many Ethereum they had, how many Tether, how many Bitcoin, and how many Poly, it did add up to the 600 million number. But the fact it all got returned just because they sent a letter out and then they gave them 500,000 as a thank you, it's just what a load of nonsense.
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
No.
I think I saw like a meme about it, but it was saying, "Dear Taliban." So with your ban on Twitter, you can still like things, but you can't do posts. Is that what it is? Because I've seen you like things, and I've been like,
yeah. Weirdly, my ban says I can't do anything. I can only view. I can't like, but I can like. I can like stuff, but anything else, I can't tweet, retweet. I can't even follow anyone or anything. It's like, if I try and click follow or unfollow, it just sends me to my ban page again and says you're banned for 5 days, 23 hours or whatever. And I'm like, all right, fuck off.
So can Trump like things?
No, he's been completely banned. He's not got on a temporary ban. He's on a permanent ban forever. So
I wonder if he could borrow the account off the Taliban leader. All right, should we move on? So we talked about FUD of the week about Doggy Coin, haven't we?
Yeah, I've done that one. The Bitcoin lesson.
Yeah, Bitcoin lesson. So what you linked to, like, Was it a browser extension?
Yeah, well, the browser extension is already Casa, but this is a guy that's also linked in another part of the payment as well. That essentially, so Casa or let you do Lightning transactions in the browser anyway, but this guy is coded up a plugin to that browser that essentially allows me to send you, say, like money through Lightning. But if you don't want to accept Lightning or Bitcoin, you want to accept pounds or euros or whatever, it converts it on the fly, and you get the currency that you wanted on your end, and that looks totally awesome.
I would only take Doink Doink.
I want Come Rockets.
Oh yeah, come
It sounds good, but I didn't realize that what the limitations were, because I just thought it was browser extension. So it's obviously good innovation, good way to take it forwards, because I didn't realize there were limitations before. But I'm not, I haven't really used Lightning that much.
Yeah, just trying to make it, because the problem is, like, if you've got Bitcoin and you're doing it in the browser, like by and large, probably the bit of Bitcoin you've got is on your phone. You've got to kind of get another device out. You got to click stuff. And ultimately what you want is a PayPal for Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
So once you kind of plug your Lightning wallet in, and the wallet on your phone is also an extension in your browser, now suddenly you can just start using it as a payment network nice and seamlessly. There's no clunkiness, because as we know, like with anything, if there's any type of kind of friction in it, you're just going to go, oh, screw it. I'll do the other one. Like, I don't want to go get my phone. It's like 2 feet away. I don't want to move 2 feet. And especially if the person on the receiving end, if they don't want to receive Bitcoin, then obviously that is now suddenly a blocker as well. But this now enables, it doesn't matter what currency you want to accept. You can pay in Bitcoin and let them accept whatever they want, and you don't need your phone with you. You can just do it within the browser. So yeah, I think it's just it's a continuation of the Bitcoin user experience getting better. It's still very early development stages here. I've tried to use it, but it's in his GitHub, and I couldn't kind of get it working on my thing. But he's got it working. It looks good, and this is ultimately, this type of thing ultimately will probably be baked into every browser as standard eventually, and it'll be like PayPal. It'll be like autofilling. That's like you go to pay, it autofills. You click buy, and you don't even care whether you spent pounds, Bitcoin, whatever. Like whatever was in that wallet, you just spend whatever you had, and whatever the person on the other end wants, they get what they want. Yeah. That's proper global commerce, right? Where it doesn't matter what currency you've got and what currency I've got. We just meet in the middle. I spend what I've got, you get what you want, and there's a load of like intermediaries that are converting the currencies, and that's what we need for Bitcoin. We need that plugged in, because that's what PayPal don't do right now, but they do it for fiat currencies. So we need to build our own version of PayPal that includes Bitcoin, and this is one of the first signs of it, and it looks great.
Well, obviously, there's also apologies, I missed it if you've already covered it. The acquisition through Twitter.
I haven't covered that one.
Of Afterpay.
Yeah.
So the linking of your Twitter profile, and everybody's saying that it's quite expensive, that they've overpaid for it, but the possibilities are endless, and I think it's actually a really good move from them. And as with everything in the years to come, because of the money printed, it'll just look like pittance, and they've got to steal. It's like when Microsoft bought and acquired LinkedIn at the time. It was like, why are you paying that much for it? I think it was maybe like 150 million or so. I'll have to go back on the numbers, but yeah, it was just seen as absurd as to why they would pay so much, but they already knew where the game was going.
Yeah. Well, Jack Dorsey has also confirmed that as part of having a Twitter account, he's going to bake in Lightning wallets as standard into Twitter. And I think that payment,
I think I saw that post.
It's all part of the same thing. So that will be huge, right?
Yeah.
But Twitter has 400 users, 400 million users. And if they all suddenly have a Lightning wallet and they can suddenly start sending value to each other in sats, that's a huge 400 million new users that can use Bitcoin on Twitter. That'll be pretty big.
Yeah.
It's just slowly but surely. Let's just see where it goes. And weirdly, actually, another announcement from Jack this week was he's just hired the CEO of, what was he called? I think he called it Blue Sky, and it's a decentralized version of Twitter. He's literally trying to disrupt himself, and he's building a decentralized version of Twitter that can't be censored, because he acknowledges the fact that because they're a big PLC, they've been IPO'd, they're in America, they have to deplatform certain people because
wasn't that what Trump tried to move to before they basically took it down because it's on AWS?
Oh, that's Parler.
Yeah, Parler. Wasn't that the whole point of Parler?
Yeah, but that again, it's another centralized service, so they can exactly can be switched off. The whole point of Blue Sky, it needs to be decentralized. It needs to be like Bitcoin, where there is no central server for it that you can just switch off AWS and it's gone. You've got to decentralize it, so you need to get a load of nodes. You need to get people to run them, and it needs to be then accessible. And that's what he's trying to do. And fair play, because if Jack Dorsey succeeds with that version of Twitter, he kills Twitter version 1, and that's. So all the employees, they're all fucking done.
Ultimately, I'll have a monopoly on both, because there'll be some people that would happily stay on Twitter.
Who'll be shouting, "I need more governing."
Exactly, because they're so used to it. And then there'll be those that are free thinking and thinking, actually, I want to go to this Blue Sky, great name, and I want a part of that. Just to recorrect my valuation earlier on, Microsoft acquired LinkedIn for 26.2 billion, not 150 million. So yeah,
26.2.
Yeah, exactly. Hearing that, that does sound like they overpaid. To be fair,
yeah. It's just the numbers. Like what was it in the 70s or even 90s? To have a billionaire was just unheard of.
Yeah,
and now billionaires are common. And companies are being bought for multi-billion, and it's just like, this is a sign of inflation. When's the actual $1 trillion company coming?
Yeah,
we've already got that. There's already $3 trillion companies. Apple, Amazon, and Microsoft.
Sorry, let me rephrase that. When will the first $1 trillion company be bought?
Oh, bought. Right.
Yeah, so you got to wait till like Apple or whoever are even more ranked, and they're buying someone else.
Yeah, just to put it into context as well, like the whole trillion word, like going back to like the like huge numbers, like where does $1 trillion ever been spent? And apparently during the whole Iraq war thing, the $2.5 trillion that got spent, when you work that out, what that works out is it means $26 million got spent every hour for 20 years. That adds up to $2.5 trillion. That is how far $1 trillion is away from $1 million. Because I think a lot of people think $1 million is there, like $1 billion's there, and $1 trillion's there. They're quite close. It's not. No, $1 billion is down here, $1 billion is up there, and $1 trillion is right up here. Like, it's fucking, you can't see it. 26 million an hour. That is what the war cost America.
I'm so glad you said this, actually.
So put this into context. There's 300 million people in America, and they're spending 26 million per hour.
Yeah.
So you're saying roughly that they would have 10 cents extra each per hour for every hour which they slept through the war if that wasn't spent.
I think they've worked it out. It's about $7,500 per year each American paid for the war.
Well, that kind of money, it's an interesting thing, because the whole pandemic and printing of money brought a big question. They care enough about 0.001% of people's health, but still weren't willing to print the money to feed the poor before that. Yeah. And the same point goes out about the war. That's $7,500 per person would have fed them for a year.
Yeah. It's just one of these things. Like the trillion word, like it never got mentioned 5 years ago. Now it gets mentioned all the fucking time, and it's just to put it into context. Like, to spend $2.5 trillion, you have to spend 26 million an hour for 20 years.
I actually looked at it visually over the weekend as well, and I think we talk about this, and literally for everybody at home and anybody listening, this is all we do. We only talk, yes, we talk about Bitcoin, we talk about everything else in terms of like financial services, but we are literally studying money and how it rules our lives, not from a an egotistical thing or for financial or personal financial gain. It's just to essentially educate ourselves. So I visually looked at what does a million and a billion and then the trillion look like. And you're absolutely right. It was fascinating because it didn't actually highlight to me how much money that it is. So I think they used the, like the packets of $100 bills initially. And so I think a million was like 10, as you would see, 10 packets basically, and just stacked up. And it was really tiny on the floor. And then they went bigger and bigger in on the crates. It was like football fields, essentially, in terms of the trillion. And it's probably one of those things that we'll link in the show notes. So for anybody that wants to click onto it, and they can actually see how much it is. And visually, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's just yet another one of the lies that they think, because they know that you don't, like, people can't even comprehend what a million is.
No, you can't. You can't comprehend it.
So once you throw in the billion and then the trillion, because in reality, a trillion is, it's a million.
Yes.
It's so fucking dumb. It's such a silly number. It's a number that we should not have got to when it comes to money. But now...
What's after a trillion?
Quadrillion.
Yeah.
Can't wait for them bad boys. Wait for it. If we manage to not fall, like, it's coming. Like
quadrillion.
It's coming.
Quintillion.
Yeah. What is it? What's the famous note? There's like $100 trillion Zimbabwe note. That's the famous one. If you ever get to a note that has 100 trillion on it, it's over.
Yes. What's the highest note? It's still like $100, or is it more?
Yeah, $100. Yeah.
Yeah, so they'll never move that with inflation, no matter what. But you're going to end up, more and more money circulating, and businesses.
They'll have to. Like if inflation continues, like $100 will essentially be $10. So they'll have to create the 500 and the 1,000. But that is very much admitting that inflation exists. Yeah.
But they would have, they've had the $100 note for many, many years. So I don't believe they'll do it, because I think it is part of the illusion. So if I quickly Google $100 notes.
Yeah, it has been around for ages, you're right. But obviously the value of that $100 before, if you had $100, like, you were rich. Now just the average person has it in their wallet.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. They could have gone for $1,000 note as the equivalent.
Yeah. Which at the moment, because they had, because the thing is, like, in British money, like, we top out at 50. And by and large, 50 isn't used. We only have 20. So I think where America did well there is they went too high with their notes already. And then anyway, what you end up transitioning to, you don't actually release notes. You retire the notes. Cash is now illegal, and you go digital. And
so the Federal Reserve note of $100 was made in 1914.
Well, there you go. Imagine how much $100 was back then. That's like having a $5,000 note.
It was $100.
You can just back then you could buy a house with it. Now you can buy your dinner with it with your family.
There you go. So I'm going to send you a link, and we can put this into the show notes of and it shows how old this video is. It's the US debt of 20 trillion visualized in stacks, but if you go onto usdebtclock.org, you can see that the US debt is actually at 28 trillion and counting.
28 trillion.
Yeah.
A fucking stupid number.
Yeah.
All right. Should we go to Shitcoin Corner?
Let's do it.
I think Darnell should leave this one.
Arsecoin.
Oh, gosh. And do you know what? Right. So we've started off the Premiership and we've not started very well. And I think Arsenal, as a business, is probably still doing very well. We're still one of the most profitable clubs in Europe. I just recently got sent this as well as an Arsenal fan, which is a prepaid Arsenal card, which allows you not only to obviously purchase goods and top it up with fiat money, but this now becomes your match day card as well. So in a way, they've actually stopped ticket touting, I believe.
Oh, so that's how you get into the ground.
Correct. So you wouldn't want to give this to anybody and then say, yeah, just give it me back, because you're then going to have to obviously reorder this. And if you put money on it, you know, you're not going to really want to do that. So this is everything in a card. But Arsenal have also decided that they're going to make their own shitcoin. And their own shitcoin is a coin which allows you to purchase Arsenal goods and keep it in the Arsenal ecosystem. Don't do it. Essentially, even as a lifelong Arsenal fan, just don't do it.
Did you see, though, if I buy this coin, like, I have a say on your starting 11. So I'm going to buy a shit ton of this, and I'm putting Saka in goal.
Why don't we just
be an arse coin whale, and I'm just going to destroy your team even worse?
I don't know. Is there any point because Arteta's picking Xhaka every week?
Oh mate,
no, in goal, I said.
Yeah,
but you leave Xhaka in midfield. He's perfect there. He's so shit.
He's just signed an extension to his contract too. I mean, he had a good Euros, I think.
Yeah, but he's still shit. I watched him play for about 3-4 years in the Premiership, and it doesn't change him from being shit.
The Euros, he turned up, but all of a sudden, back on with an Arsenal shirt and back to normal. Probably get 5 yellow cards and be suspended for 3 games, and we're still paying him.
Yeah, but still doesn't track back.
Yeah, oh no.
I must admit that I do think you did miss a trick on this one, because you've called it like AFC coin. And as we've known, like, if you want to get a coin like viral, Cum Rocket, Doge, like Doink Doink, if you'd have called this arse, that would have got so much attention, and like people have gone, oh my god, they've a coin called arse coin, like it's a shit coin, and they've literally gone, yeah, it's a shit coin. Just embrace it, like call it arse.
But the thing is, it's just a token which is fan rewards and like doing vote stuff, so it's got no monetary value, and it's literally anyone can apply for it. So like you said, we could apply for it. I don't know what it attaches itself to, whether it's an app in your phone. Does it attach to an app or something?
Well, it's interesting, because I don't know if that does, but this does, which is interesting. So you can essentially, and you download the Arsenal app, and through the app, you can pay, and obviously you can buy your tickets.
You need to hold that up a bit more so I can screenshot
it. Mate, be my guest. Ultimately, you can do everything through their card. So I don't think that they've allowed you to do that through the arse coin.
So apparently, I've loaded up a list of Premiership clubs, and it's given me the last year's 18-19, and it says that you're behind Spurs. How does that make you feel?
Well, it's been happening for a while, and it's kind of been like the flippening, isn't it? But we've been having this thing where Arsenal versus Tottenham, and the last, I think, 23 years, obviously, well, in total, I think the last 3 seasons, they've been ahead of us. But prior to that, the last 20 seasons, we've always finished higher than them. I think it's inevitable now that it hasn't just been, it's not just a coincidence. They are there, and we need to do something big to stop. It'll
be fighting for who can get in the top 10 this season.
Yeah, exactly that. And launching a shitcoin, we need to get our priorities straight and get it back onto the field. It also goes on to show you that when teams weren't able to just run away with the money printer, and we had Arsene Wenger, who I will always continue to state, I didn't necessarily want to get rid of him without a decent successor, because when everyone was saying Wenger out, I was like, yeah, but for who? you know. So, but he managed that team on a budget and also got decent results. Yeah, top 4 every year. Yeah, a couple of FA Cups, and also obviously won the Premiership. But that is when things were reasonable and in control.
It's every time you sack a manager, you get a worse one in. Like the next one is genuinely going to be Mark Hughes.
It's better than Big Sam. We're not there just yet, but
I don't know. Mark Hughes is possibly one of the worst Premiership managers in recent years. So I think he'll get you relegated quite easily. I think we've probably gone a bit of a tangent with Arsenal. I know that our listeners, as in Tom, don't like us talking about football.
Actually, where's your fantasy football team this year, Ross? You not got one?
I just didn't get around to doing it, and I always give up after about 3 games when I forget about to do a sub.
And it's only 1 week in, but somebody's already got over 100 points. So
it's someone doesn't have a job.
Yeah, he's got no life.
Hey, 14 seasons in a row, I have smashed it.
Yeah, don't have a job.
Don't give me that shit.
I think he's found a code into the back door.
I just bribe the players. This is why I love fantasy football, because there's no way of cheating, right? Because we can all pick the players. The players are all paid millions. They go out and they do their thing. How do I always pick the right ones? 14 years on the trot.
Yeah. I don't know. How does he do it?
Every single year. And fantasy football is getting harder and harder now, because all the stats that I look at, other people look at it and shove it out on their YouTube and on the Reddit accounts and all that. And they give everyone the fucking answers, and they screenshot their team and put it out there. And there's players in it that I'm like, oh my God, no one would have known that player existed. And then suddenly I see like every team have them in. So to try and get an edge has got harder and harder and harder. I really have to dig now. And so I'm actually surprised that I'm still managing to stay on top. But for as long as I can, then I'm still going to keep on just flexing. It's just a nice bit of fun. Win all the leagues every year. I like it.
Yeah.
I can retire people like Sir freaking Dr. 10%. He just retires. He concedes defeat before the season even starts.
Yeah. Mate, you got to play. Although it's not great cheering for another team, but then really right now I'm an orphan of a team because
the problem is that whenever I pick Liverpool players, they go out of form, and then I refuse to pick Liverpool players when you need to pick Salah.
Yeah, so that's another thing with like fantasy football. It's exactly the same as investing. All emotion has to be to the side. You look at the data, 100% data, and then you base your decisions on what the data says. Even if you think, oh, I don't think that player's playing that well, I didn't like him in that game. Look at the data. His dribbles are on, his assists were on, his shots on target are on. It means he's going to score. Put him in. And then you look at the other team he's playing against. Oh, look, they're weak down the left. They're weak on headers and all this kind of stuff. This guy's going to, the stats match up. Put him in. And then, there's no guarantees. It's like with investing. You're still betting on the future, and the future has lots of unknowns in it. Like the guy could get sent off in the first 10 minutes. You could get injured before the game. All these types of things can happen. Same with investing. Loads of things can happen, but you just got to play the odds. You look at the data, you make your decision, you put your money where your mouth is. And then, sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. But if you look at the data all the time and always base your decisions on data, you're going to be right more often than you're wrong. And it turns out good in the end.
Take that advice in terms of removing the emotion.
Yeah. Because when I first started playing fantasy football, I would just ignore Man United players. And this was back in the day where Ronaldo was there. He was scoring a hat-trick every fucking game. I came about half a millionth out of like 1 million players. I was like totally down the bottom. So that was my first season. And I just went, I have to change my tact. I have to turn off emotion. I have to switch into data or just not play this game. And I went into data mode, and then I started winning from then on.
Anyway, moving on. So I think this is the last one. I think this is one which Gaz has obviously picked out.
Finally, Bruce Buffer voice.
From a programming subreddit on Reddit. So a bit random, which you picked this. I'm guessing someone posted on Twitter.
No, I found it on Reddit. It's probably one of the few subs that I'm not banned from that I can still read.
What are you doing on programming subreddit?
I can program. Hello World programs. This is probably one of the subreddits that I learned about Bitcoin from. There's these guys chatting about stuff. So I like to just keep I like listening to people. Like programmers tend to be super smart, right? They tend to have good views in the world. So
this one didn't seem very clever.
No, this one is a complete retard. Yeah.
It just seemed like a bunch of people who are bitching about something which they don't understand.
So again, for the context of the listeners, just give a little bit of background.
Yeah. So what this is weirdly what I experienced when I used to work with a load of developers. So they are super smart people, but once they make up their mind on something, they are very ingrained in that side. So I saw this when it was, say, C++ and Java. You would have two sets of developers, and both sets would just swear that their programming language is the best. You'd see it on Windows and Apple.
Yeah.
Whichever one they picked, that was the best platform. And what this guy has done is gone, Bitcoin's a scam. And I am just going to double down.
Well, it wasn't just one guy. It was just a shitload, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's fantastic. It's just like I almost want to read some of it out.
So I found a few comments, and there's a standard tulip bulbs. So I just don't know why people. There's a tulip bulb surge in Netherlands which lasted for 3 months. And it's just like, how does that relate to Bitcoin, which has been alive for 10 years now?
No, nearly 13.
13, yes.
Yeah. From January.
So how on earth does that relate? Like, I cannot get my head around how people pull out tulip bulbs again. Maybe back in the early years when it had a big pump, then fair enough, it's tulip bulbs. It's a bit of a craze. But now, how is it a tulip bulb when it keeps on coming back, especially around inflation? And then the other one was cryptocurrency has no intrinsic value. What does that even mean? Like, what value is your money? What intrinsic value has a dollar got, or even a pound?
Yeah, because they don't understand money, do they? They don't understand
it. Exactly.
Yeah, and he says like Bitcoin's a cancer because it's burning up the environment. He just goes on it's almost like a nice little condensed. Like you see the neckbeards on Reddit. It's a really, because they're quite intellectual guys, but they're just nearly always wrong. So they write these intellectual pieces that are just dumb, which is a very interesting thing. But then it was the comments that I loved, because he basically goes, look, the government have it. You don't need to replace the money. It's all fine. This is just a Ponzi scheme. And then the first reply is, it's almost as if there were good reasons why governments start meddling with currency in the first place. And the next guy then goes, next should be telling us it's useful for a society to have a centralized political organization whose members you vote for. And then another one then goes, wait, you're saying we need a government that does stuff? And you just can see this is just a load of statists that actually believe the government propaganda, that they believe that they actually are acting in their interests, that they are managing their money responsibly. And you just go, wow. And then this is one of the reasons why I actually posted this and said it was a good thing to talk about. Normally I see this type of stuff in the shitcoin Reddits, and they're just like, yeah, whatever. They're complete and utter morons. They're the moon boys that just want to go after Lambos. These programmers typically are intelligent people that normally have good takes on stuff, and they are just so fucking wrong here. So wrong.
Yeah.
And
can I just also
did you post?
No, I didn't. You're trying to find my username, motherfucker. I'm not giving it out.
Oh, I've got it already. Don't worry.
You haven't.
You have. Oh. I'll drop you a DM.
What was interesting towards the bottom end of it, and obviously it's again linked in the show notes, is that what he says is true. He says, nowadays it's no secret for anyone that capitalism is not working well enough anymore. Everyone knows it. The cracks are showing everywhere, but no one knows where to go. The idea of a market that the crypto community has is already old and has tested enough for us to know its flaws. Well, that part's not true, but the part before, in terms of it's not working, and it's broken is correct. The current system, the current financial market, the current system is broken. Hence the reason why we've been ranting on for the last 18 podcasts or 17 before prior to now, that you need to move to Bitcoin, because the current one, we're too far down the rabbit hole on that to then come back up, to then try and restart again. And things like austerity, as in stop spending or simply default, we're just not prepared to do it. So the only way that we have to do it is by changing and going to something completely new.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. And his biggest mistake in what he says, because you're spot on in the fact that he has identified that there's a problem and we need to change. And then fundamentally, he thinks Bitcoin isn't the solution, which again, he's wrong on.
Yes.
But he's made the most common mistake that I always see in these criticisms. He's blaming capitalism. And there is nothing wrong with capitalism. The problem is we have crony capitalism because we have the money printer at the top of it. If we just had pure capitalism where we have profit and losses, good companies do well, bad companies fail.
Correct.
Then there's accountability. We have the biggest company in every single country is the government, and they're not allowed to fail. They're allowed to do whatever the fuck they want, no matter what they want to do. They just print it and fund it. That is why the world is fucked. Crony capitalism, not capitalism. So what he wants to probably move to is some type of socialist thing. And he's blaming like the big bad, like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg. He thinks they're the enemy. It's not. It's the guy that you voted in. It's probably Biden or Boris Johnson or whatever. They're the guys you should be going at because they're the ones running the money printer. The people running independent businesses that are running it for profit, that is not the reason why people can't afford food and like food stamps and all that.
Yeah.
That's inflation did that to them, and that is government, not private businesses.
Maybe send him a link to the podcast. If you do respond to him, that's the best way to hit him.
Yeah, man. Let's have a look at his name. What's his freaking name? Brother Karamazov.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, this guy quite often, like I've actually noticed it's quite a lot of Reddit now has been invaded by government spooks. So it wouldn't surprise me. What I've actually realized.
Get this out again.
No, but really,
I need a pre-made hat just to pull out every time you start going.
Yeah. No, but seriously, like
hat time. Yeah, and just go. That's the hat, isn't it?
Yeah,
the tinfoil hat.
But seriously, like I've noticed on Twitter, like I've seen accounts that have, weirdly, they've all been around for about 10 years, but they've only done like 400 tweets. And what it looks like is all these 400 tweets have only come out in the last like 2 years, and they are 100% on one topic. And it is pro-government, pro-lockdown, pro-virus type stuff. And what it looks like, they've essentially acquired like a load of old accounts that have large history. They deleted all the previous tweets and then just start fresh.
Trying to infiltrate Reddit, and then therefore, they
upvote each other's comments, downvote everyone else's. They do the same on Twitter. So I've seen a lot of it. Because I must admit, like Reddit about 2 or 3 years ago, I used to comment in the same way, and I never got banned once because I'm very careful. Actually, weirdly, the slip up I made on Twitter was calling someone a retard. That was like I kind of like hold my hands up to that. It's like it's a personal insult. Okay, fine. And I've used like a word that is some people can deem offensive. All right, fine. It's very, very rare I do that. Normally I just argue hard, but on a point, and I don't go into personal insults. But in the last 2 years on Reddit, I've been banned from everything I've ever commented in.
No chances, just straight ban.
Oh, it's instant ban. There's no like, on Twitter, you get like, there's 12 hours, 48 hours, then 7 days. Reddit is just like, there's just independent mods, right? There's no like central authority. With Twitter, there's a central authority that ultimately are banning you, which is why I think there's like a kind of appeals process. But in Reddit, there's mods in the subreddit, and when they decide to ban you, you're banned, and it's just, you're gone.
Have you come across Caffeine at all?
No.
The app Caffeine.
No.
Yeah, have a look at that. So, me love music, and Caffeine is an app which similar to this, like people live stream and then they comment. But in there, I've seen things like battle rap and also like dance as well. So it's pretty cool because I've seen people doing a podcast over like a show, and then people will go in, the comments are coming up live. So it's a mixture of like Instagram and YouTube and various different social medias all in one. Pretty cool. And maybe
are rap battles still allowed?
Yeah.
Is it not hate speech?
It's everything. Exactly. It's everything that's not allowed still. Yeah. So yeah, you name it, it's being said and it's being done, and it is fully alive and kicking.
Sounds awesome. Guys, that's one of my guilty pleasures on YouTube is I watch rap battles all the time.
Oh, you're gonna love Caffeine.
Because they're so good. I almost can't believe it. A lot of them are American, and I don't think they're allowed to say half the things that they say. But holy shit, in rap battles, they go in like really personal, really offensive stuff. I'm like, oh, this is what I get off. This is proper edgy stuff. I love it.
It's a true art form to be able to obviously put everything together and then do that on stage and not mess up, and it's good, really good. So
you got to respond live, haven't you? Like literally, if you go at me, like insult me for something, I have to come back on you. Like if I have to respond to what you've said and then go at your thing, it's like the speed. Like they're super intelligent people, aren't they? That do this stuff.
Super intelligent, yeah.
Nice.
So maybe I'll send you a link for Caffeine afterwards.
Let's close us out, so never look.
Cool. Okay, so there you have it. Episode 18 brought to you by the world's most bullish podcast, Dr. Evil 10%, Mr. All In, and Sir Never Look. In the background, she was here, but she wasn't here, Mrs. No Show. Yeah, fellow plebs, if you want to hear us, then tune in.